You are floating, floating just like paper in the breeze. You are floating, floating just like paper in the breeze. Never know which way you're going, floating just like paper in the breeze. You stretch your wings, set your sights high above the trees. Instead of taking flight, you floating in the breeze. You are floating, floating just like paper in the breeze. You are floating, floating just like paper in the breeze. Never know which way you're going, floating just like paper in the breeze. You know that you were born to glide, my friend. No matter how you try, you floating in the wind. Yes, you're floating, floating just like paper in the breeze. You are floating, floating just like paper in the breeze. Never know which way you're going, floating just like paper in the breeze. You stretch your wings, set your sights high above the trees. No matter how you try, you floating in the breeze. Yes, you're floating, floating just like paper in the breeze. You are floating, floating just like paper in the breeze. Never know which way you're going, floating just like paper in the breeze. Never know which way you're going, floating just like paper in the breeze.
Route 104 with Chris Martin. What's the name of that one, Chris?
That one's called Paper in the Breeze.
Paper in the Breeze. Very nice. Very nice. Welcome. Thanks for coming in. Glad we could do this.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
All right. Now that we got to talk about that guitar. Got to talk about that old Gibson. How old is that thing anyway?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, this is a 1955 a J45 Gibson.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it's a prized possession, that's for sure.
We were talking about this before we went on. It came from your mom? She picked it up at a pawn shop somewhere? Or
Yeah, well, the story goes that she was taking guitar lessons at the age of 16, and Grandpa had a conversation with a teacher, and the instructor said, listen, she's gone as far as she's going to go with a cheap guitar. And Grandpa was a man with good taste, so he marched into the pawn shop, and he called it beforehand.
Best pawn shop in town, I'll have you know. Yeah.
And I was really fortunate enough to have received it from Mom a couple of years ago, which was it was an amazing moment, and I'm pretty glad to be able to bring it out to moments like this.
Well, I guess now it sounds particularly good when you're doing something with kind of a retro feel too. It kind of lends itself to that.
It's true, and I'm one of these guys that believes that there's mojo in old guitars, and whatever inspires you as a musician, you got to kind of go with it. So
now, one of the things you brought in, one of the CDs you brought in, is kind of a sampler, I guess we could say, for Let's Riot. Now, let's talk about Let's Riot.
Yeah,
here.
I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
This is a record label that myself and my partner Tiffany Spencer have been developing in the past year. And Let's Riot Music Volume 1 is like our introduction to the world of releases. And what we did was put out a call for submissions to rockabilly, country, and blues artists across Canada. And we got an amazing response, and we ended up with 16 artists from coast to coast representing that kind of roots retro style. And it was really hard to whittle it down to the final 16 selections, but we came up with a really great album, and it's been been getting some play all over the place because it's got all these different singles that
Yeah,
all
I
these
guess.
artists are working.
Now, there's a pretty good scene, pretty good rockabilly scene in Halifax, eh?
Yeah, it's true. It went underground for a while, but we've been putting on some events called Rockabilly Riot for a handful of years now, and they've really grown in popularity. And we've had a chance to partner with lots of different industry professionals and lots of different musicians. And we've even brought in burlesque performers, which is
Got to have the burlesque performance.
oh, well,
it's key right there.
Yeah, it takes it to the next level.
That's great. So where can we see that on the web? There must be a good web hub for Let's Riot.
Yes, we have a couple of websites you can check. There is rockabillyriot.com, East Coast rockabillyriot.com, and then we have letsriot.ca. That's the record label. And so you can check out all the events and the upcoming releases and everything at those two sites.
Excellent. Lots of great stuff from Damien Alexander. I never would have pictured him as kind of he's got kind of the Al Green thing going on there, but he goes for kind of the retro stuff. Like locally, there's some pretty interesting folks here too.
Absolutely, and if we kept a really strict format, we might have missed out on a few opportunities with guys like Damien.
Yeah.
He has a really blues rock kind of feel to this song, and the vocal performance is quite spectacular in my opinion. So it was a great choice for our compilation, I think.
What's a good East Coast track to play off here? Off the Let's Riot music. Volume 1.
I'd like to take the opportunity to push my current single.
Hey, you made the trip in, sure.
It's called Guitar Picker by Chris Martin.
Chris Martin, fantastic. On Route 104.
Come on, guitar picker, keep working the string. Everybody's rocking, keep on playing that thing. There's one thing that I want to say to all the guitar pickers in the world today. If you want to get some people popping, crank it up, let's get rocking. Cowboy with a flat top, keep on strumming. Rocker on electric, two-band humming. Bluesman play it pretty and slow. Let me hear that guitar everywhere I go. Come on, guitar picker, keep working the strings. Everybody's rocking, keep on playing that thing. There's nothing wrong with a saxophone. I'd rather hear that guitar with vintage tone. I have no problem with bass and drums, but guitar pickers have more fun. Come on, guitar picker, keep working the strings. Everybody's rocking, keep on playing that thing. Come on, guitar picker, keep working the strings. Everybody's rocking, keep on playing that thing. Come on, guitar picker, keep working the strings.
Route 104 with Guitar Picker from Chris Martin right there. And, with Chris Martin and the Troubleshooters, a whole nother thing. Now, this is your this is your CD right here. An ECMA nomination.
Yeah, we
this year.
just received that this past month. It was in January. They announced that, and it was very exciting. That's kind of a high watermark for me and the guys. And we also received the same nomination, Blues Recording of the Year, from Music Nova Scotia for the same recording. Right. So, it's great to see that something we put so much work into has a little bit of legs, and it's really kind of got us a bit of attention around the industry.
Who are the troubleshooters? Who's on the CD with you?
Well, there's another guitar player besides myself named Mike Nahernick, and on bass and drums we have Stu Hayward and Rob Friss, and then we've got a couple of tenor sax players named Tyler Crane and Colin Boyd.
Oh, the sax players too. That adds a whole nother dimension to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. Especially for me as the singer and guitar player, I could really just kind of hold back at times and let the boys take the arrangement over and let the groove go. And
it's good to be king. Yeah. So, how did you get into this? Like, how did you did you listen to a lot of the old stuff when you were a kid? Did you grow up around that stuff? Is it in your blood?
Yeah, my father is a recording engineer and a great lover of music, and my mother is like a folk performer. That's what the history that she came from. And I grew up with music in the home, and then around the age of 16, I started going to Taz Records, and I bought a lot of vinyl. I got a bit of a collection, and that's really been the driving force behind the styles that I have come to love. And there's so many people with similar tastes in Halifax that I've come to meet. We can really bounce off each other. And
well, having a place like Taz is you don't realize how lucky you are to have a place like that in town. I remember talking to Colin James years ago when he was starting to go with the little big band thing.
Yeah.
And I think Van Morrison actually was in there once when he was in town, 15 years or so ago. And just like going through the old stuff you couldn't find anywhere else. And it was such a treasure trove.
It's true, and it's got such a history with the scene here. And I'm really happy to see that currently it seems to be growing. And it's not just staying the same or hasn't plateaued. It's getting better and better.
Isn't that amazing? Like how the record, like the huge chains keep closing down, but places like Taz and the real homegrown places, they still stay afloat. And
well, you still need to acquire music somewhere. So I think all the diehards have really been drawn to that scene, and hopefully it just stays that way because it's good for everybody.
What kind of artists did you listen to when you were starting out?
Well, I started off as an early teenager listening to Nirvana and the grunge rock scene, and then I think the big change for me was when I heard Eric Clapton playing some blues, and I decided to follow that line and see where he was getting it from, and then from there it was like the spectrum just opened up and started listening to everyone from Robert Johnson to the Fabulous Thunderbirds, and just trying to absorb it all.
It all comes from the same place, doesn't it? It all seems to come from the same outpouring of
three chords and the truth,
Yeah. What do you got coming up as far as gigs? Where can we catch Chris Martin, the Troubleshooters, any of these folks?
Well, we're working right now on a bit of a showcase series at Barley's during the ECMA weekend, where I want to perform myself as well as bring some friends in, and I know John Campbell John is booked, and he's great, and the Bad Habits are coming in from PEI as well, who are a great up and coming blues and rock act. And aside from that, I've got a couple things going, like some host concerts, and then I'm working on some summer touring. I want to hit up the region and do the festival circuit and stuff. So you have to plan that a little bit out in advance. So I'm really focused on that right now.
Yeah, so many festivals. I mean, you've got the Dutch Mason Blues Festival down toward the Smokin' Blues thing up towards the valley. That's another big one.
Yeah, I performed that one a couple times, and that one seems to be growing with each year. And then you have so many other festivals, no matter what style of music you love. We're very fortunate in this area of the world to have such a vibrant scene. So all we need is lots of listeners to keep it going, right?
It starts here. It starts here. Chris, thanks for coming in. What's the best place to see you? I got you on Facebook, so just Chris Martin on Facebook.
Yeah, check us out on Facebook. The Troubleshooters are also on there, and myself, Chris Martin. And then you can check out all the multimedia we have at sonicbids.com /the CMart Trio.
CMart Trio. Okay. What else should we play? Want to play? Well, we played something from. We played Guitar Picker here.
Yeah.
What's another recommendation?
I'd like you guys to hear "Do the Bounce" by me and the Troubleshooters. That's kind of the song we've been pushing from our release, A Whole 'Nother Thing.
Here it comes. Chris Martin and the Troubleshooters on Route 104.